Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Kelly Murray. I'm the Chief Engagement Officer for the Consortium for Service Innovation and the KCS Academy. Welcome and thanks for being here. I'm joined by Arnfinn Austefjord, who's the Global Head of the KCS Academy, our Community Success Manager, Jennifer Mortgat, and Operations Director, Jill DeGraff. Per the usual, we have just a couple of announcements as we're getting organized here. So this is a KCS in Action web session, which we usually host the last week of the month. If there is a topic that you'd like to hear about or you'd like to present on, please let me know. We're looking for speakers for 2021. If you enjoy these events and would like to support the work of the consortium and the KCS Academy, do consider becoming a member. The consortium is going to host our annual member update on January 7th. So if you want to hear what we've been up to in 2020, you can come and join us there, and I'll put a link in the chat. We are anticipating quite a lot of folks with us today. So everybody is on mute. Please do put questions or feedback in the chat. And we are recording this call, so you'll receive an email with the recording in a day or two here. Today, I'm so pleased to introduce Sathish and Paul from Akamai, who are going to talk with us about their approach to problem management using KCS. You'll also see Kamaya and Paula from Akamai who are in the chat. They're available to answer questions there, and then we'll have time at the end to do a live Q&A. So Sathish and Paul, take it away.
Thank you very much. So hello, everyone. My name is Paul Lane. I'm a Director of Product Support, which is the Tier 2 organization. And I've been with Akamai for 15 years. And as you can see from the slide, that picture is from 15 years ago. And I'm really excited about presenting today to you with my colleague, Sathish.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sathish Narayanan, and I'm the Senior Manager of Akamai Tier 2 Support under Paul Lane. I've got 25 years worth of experience in various customer-facing roles. We are here today to share our success and learnings so we can get everyone here excited about KCS Driven Problem Management. Back to you, Paul.
Thanks, Sathish. So first, a little bit about Akamai, if you're not aware of us. So Akamai Technologies is a global content delivery network, or what we call CDN, cybersecurity and cloud service company. Our content delivery network is one of the world's largest distributed computing platforms, serving 30% of all global traffic. And no matter where in the world our customer end users are, Akamai provides their business with a massively distributed, integrated platform for secure cloud delivery that makes it easier for them to create amazing digital experiences that are fast, intelligent, and secure, all backed up by exceptional service, global real-time monitoring, and an outstanding support organization. And for this presentation, the term architect is the name of our technical support organization. And to further understand Akamai and its history, there's a really great book called No Better Time. And this is the brief, remarkable life of Danny Lewin, the genius who transformed the internet. Danny was one of our co-founders, and this is such a wonderful read. And during the presentation, we will be giving out 5 of these books, and the names will be announced towards the end of the presentation. So for today's discussion, we hope you come away with the following key points. Who is Akamai? KCS Driven Problem Management works and why it works. And patience is key, and we'll talk about that in one of the slides. And expect the unexpected outcomes, which you will come with. And I will explain those in further slides as well, too. So a little bit about the agenda. We want to go over our objective, the problem management history, some key results, which we want to share with you, and then what our problem summary is in our approach to KCS. And then what's next, lessons learned. And I want to close with a really compelling story that started from problem management. So our objective, which is and should be consistent with all industries, is how do we reduce the repeatable issues observed for our customer base and your customer base? And how do we make our products more stable, mature for our customers to achieve their business outcomes? So why is this important? So you think of customer satisfaction, customers can review better documentation. They want to be self-service. They want to do everything themselves. So let's provide them the means to do so. Give them really good knowledge-based articles and give them good product documentation. In addition to that, they want tools that they can use so they're not relying on us or yourself to get work done. This way, they'll be less reliant on us and your teams. And product stability, and we'll talk about that later on in the session as well, too. And when you think of employee satisfaction, our tech support engineers and our product support engineers, they love to fix issues and work with the customers. However, they like to proactively fix issues with the product and the platform. And everyone wants to reduce the case volume coming into your organization. And the more we put out for the customers, the less reliant they are on us. And product maturity, and more on this later as we go through the presentation. So I'm going to talk about one of our successes, and this is with our product, which is called Image Manager. And before we go into what some of the KCS driven product sprints were we performed, we want to show you just how powerful problem management can be. This is a sprint we did a few years back, which was a manual, very manual, time-consuming process with huge benefits and some different unexpected outcomes, which I'll talk about momentarily. This product was 2 years old at the time, so the timing was just perfect to do our first product management sprint for this product. So we worked with the engineering teams and told them what we wanted to do, and we just started a really good collaborative platform with them. And I remember telling the engineering leader at the time, goes, my goal is to put you out of a job. And he looked at me and sort of had that fuzzy look in his face. And he says, okay, I get it. Less escalations to my team. I can do bigger and better things. And that's what it was. So the plan was to review 185 escalations into the tier 3 organization, which was his group. And these escalations came from the architect team and some from the field, which is our services team. And each escalation had an associated case with root cause codes assigned and subsequent escalation to the tier 2 organization. So hence we had 3 sets of data. Now keep in mind, sometimes you don't need more data or tons of data. You need to look at the data you have differently, and this is key. So from here, we collaborated amongst the 3 teams. We divided up the work to manually review the cases and the root cause codes and course adjusted those codes. And we'll talk about that later on too, on why we do that. And then we had several boot camps to review and produce themes. And this was commonalities. So we came up with 4 themes. One was documentation. And this was making knowledge-based articles more external to the customers and not internal. So we flipped them around when it was deemed necessary to do so. And also updated knowledge-based articles that were tagged that they needed updating. We identified a tool, and what I mean by this is one of the escalations which was common was checking an asset of image quality. So a customer would call us and say, can you check the quality of this asset? And tier 1 didn't have a tool to do that, nor did tier 2. Only the engineering team had that. So if you think of it, that was probably, that really stuck out to us, unavoidable escalation. So we worked with the engineering team and said, why don't we make this tool customer facing and let them do this themselves? So they thought about it and they figured out a way to do it, and now it's launched. So now our customers are not relying on us for checking that quality. They can do it themselves. And then there was a training aspect, and this was to reduce the level of effort and potential escalations upward. And then there was a bug we identified through all these escalations. So that was a big win for us there. So some of the unexpected outcomes before I go back into the data was the trainings really produced something unique. So the engineering team trained tier 2 to another level, and we took that training and then trained the tier 1 teams. And we figured, since we got rid of what we consider the low-hanging fruit, and this was the tools, the bug, and the documentation, that we were going to be left with critical issues. And at the end of the day, that's what we were left with, just critical issues. And we figured the LOE would maintain being flat or even go up, but actually the LOE went down. So that training was pretty significant on making other tier 1 and tier 2 teams very good at their craft. So this ended up being very good. So over a 2-year period, though, we started looking at the escalation rates from tier 1 to tier 2 and tier 2 onwards to tier 3. And although tier 1 to tier 2 maintained the same at 33%, the numbers went down, but the percentage was the same. But tier 2 to tier 3, the numbers went from 40% to 90%. So we looked at that and we said, wow, that's kind of odd. What does it mean? So we did a deep analysis of those escalations. And what was key was all those escalations were what I would consider legit escalations where there was nothing we could do from tier 1 or tier 2. But tier 1 identified the issues based on the trainings that we provided them. And all tier 2 was doing was validating what they saw and analyzed, and we just passed that on to engineering. So out of 61 escalations, 55 of them were platform or product related issues that we couldn't touch. So that day gave us a good opportunity to now start a second sprint in the future coming up, that we're going to look at those escalations were product and platform related and bucketize those to see if there's a bucket that we can address to avoid escalations upwards. Now, if you look at this data, we started this towards the end of Q4, and we implemented the changes in Q1 of 2019. So as you can see, systematically, everything went down, and we have plateaued at about 50 cases per quarter for this product. So this is a one-off. So I'll make that clear. Not all products are going to fall into this category. It was just perfect timing for this product. Now, what's unique about this is, and a new metric that we are tracking is, while the case volume is going down, we're still selling units, and that the units sold are going up. So we wanted to figure out a way of how can we tell if the product is performing as it should. So now we are tracking cases per account per year as a new metric. And as you can see, we went down from 1.3 back in 17 and 18, down to 0.9 something in 2019, and we're going to end up at 0.32 at the end of this year. So this is a really good story. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I wanted to show you this. So image manager is at the top. That was a very manual process. And then we switched our focus onto knowledge-based driven problem management sprints. So these are 3 more products: Net Storage, Impulse, and Cloud Test. And as you can see, year over year, we reduced the case volume, and the level of effort made some minor changes, not too much. But when you look at the net case, that is the difference of the cases between 2019 and 2020. So a total of those 4 products were almost 1,300 cases. And when you do when you multiply out what the average level of effort is, that was almost 6,300 hours saved within our organization. Or if you equate that to FTEs, that's 4.25 headcount at 76% utilization. So not that we're going to remove that headcount anywhere. It's just that we have the ability now to shift those resources to other parts within Architect in the security, web, media, business, or the portal teams instead. So wherever the work is coming from, we throw those resources at it. So this is really good information on future when you track problem management activity. Next slide, please. Great. And while the efforts were hugely successful, there was a lot of challenges with some of the ways we were tackling problem management. And one being that we had implemented and relied a lot off the manual selection of root cause codes. So these root cause codes, which was 4-tier deep, what we found was happening where the engineers, the lists were so long, if they scrolled down through the tabs and missed what they needed to hit on, sometimes they would just give up and just click on whatever's easiest to do. Sometimes it was at the very top of the chart. And so this was some poor behavior, which we've been trying to change, but we know it's not an effective solution moving forward, hence towards our knowledge-based driven efforts moving forward. Thank you. And in comes KCS. We kicked off the program in the summer of 2017. And at that time, there was interest in using it to do problem management, but we realized we needed to focus on adoption, and we wanted to mature KCS first. So instead, we set it as a 5-year goal and knew we'd come back to it. At the start of 2019, the KCS program manager and the KDE sponsor kicked off the KDE program. It was perfect timing to test out pivoting the KCS data for use with our problem management sprints. We knew it could be done. That original goal of having it done within 5 years of the KCS kickoff was largely in part of the efficiency we knew it would bring by leveraging what we are already doing with KCS And in the KCS version 6 principles guide, there is clear indication that it fits in nicely with the KDE programs. This text is from the KCS version 6 practice guide. The statements focus on the KDE goals, but one of the biggest values of the KDE program can produce is highlighted in green, using patterns and trends of reuse to identify product, process, and policy changes that could eliminate the root cause of most frequent issues. Benefits include incident reduction that is a result of corrective actions taken to remove the problem and improve the product. Now over to Sathish.
Thanks, Paul. So we know we have a mature KCS environment, thanks in large part to Monique. Before we started, we wanted to learn from other companies who had done it. And while we were not able to find any companies who we could learn from, we did find a couple of thought leadership white papers around the idea that did support our goal. This one from DBK and Associates talks about how accurate linking gives you all the benefits of case closure codes with only a fraction of the pain. We also went back to IDLE, and if you search for problem management in IDLE, you might find some graphics like this one that shows how the correlation of cases or incidents identifies specific problems. And if you have a knowledge center mind, you might translate to something like this. The KB article is the record of attachment or organizing cases. So this is another example of idle example of a problem investigation workflow. You can see there are a lot of steps, and there is a use of KB after the fact, after the pervasive issue is identified, a knowledge article is then created. So looking at this from a KCS perspective, we highlighted in the green circles all the items that now become streamlined simply because we are already doing KCS. KCS is based on demand, and it's not done after the fact, so it brings us a lot of efficiencies. And we did not stop there. We made a pros and cons list for using KB data or case closure codes. You can see we couldn't think of any pros, only cons for the root cause codes, such as significant level of effort, overall high maintenance, just to name a couple of examples. But in the KCS driven approach, it's very clear that the benefits of using KB data are a huge win. The KCS approach makes the support organization more self-sufficient. And since the KBs are demand driven, they can keep pace with the new incidents to provide accurate and precise information, which is critical to problem management success. So we kicked off our pilot in Q4 of 2019. This is a view of how our process would work. Articles are attached to cases via KCS. Some articles based on patterns and trends now become JIRAs, or basically corrective actions, and we use JIRAs to track them. Before the kickoff, we created a run book based on the learnings from the pilot. The goal of the run book is to help KDEs and other support engineers involved in the problem management activities to identify problem areas by analyzing KB articles to identify corrective action items that can be tracked in our problem register. The run book also ensures that we have a consistent and structured approach to running problem management sprints. So we did a POC first to confirm what seemed so easy and logical in our minds, and to validate our assumptions before making any decisions. In the POC data that was collected through identifying issues based on link cases and associated level of effort, we limited the scope to a specific product, and we grouped the case data based on KB articles. We then started categorizing the corrective actions and further analyzed the data to identify improvements to tooling, processes, training, and documentation. Our assumptions were also confirmed in that KCS linking is more accurate when compared to case closure codes, as you can see in the slide here. So we have been doing this for a year now. Here's an example that highlights the impact of KCS driven problem management. During the POC, we were able to identify a high impact incident on one of the products where a manual restart of critical service was required by Akamai personnel, and this required our customers to open support tickets to unblock their workflow. Akamai support engineers had handled around 130 support cases and spent more than 400 hours over a 2-year time frame. So that's a significant level of effort. We were able to completely automate the restart of this service, which not only eliminated any downtime and also played a pivotal role in enhancing customer experience. What's also worth noticing is that out of 51 internal articles, KBs we analyzed during that sprint, we were able to convert 73% of those articles to external. So the summary for this year, we completed 33% more sprints, 21% more issues when compared to 2019. Overall, prioritization and faster resolutions of problem using a data-driven approach for identifying high-impact incidents affecting multiple customers, and that's one of the key wins. What's next? We are working to bring even more efficiency to the program via an enhanced design by Paula. As you can see, article categories already support flagging of product and subproduct for each solution. We are looking to enhance the article to display if the solution root cause identified has been declared a problem via problem management sprints. We are also working to add the corrective actions as related items to the article. As many corrective actions as needed can be added and tracked. And if the corrective actions is related to a JIRA, the status and owner can be updated automatically through integration. This will also give us the data to manage and track the declarations in our dashboard that Kimaya and our business intelligence team is working on. So this is what the sprint workflow looks like and how it correlates to the 3-tab dashboard, what you're seeing here, and we have in the works. We have a very well-established process for each of the phases involved in this end-to-end workflow. And we have taken any guesswork out of the equation and execution by thoroughly documenting all the necessary steps to be taken in the runbook, which we briefly mentioned earlier. Even before the kickoff of the discovery phase, we define a set of filters applicable to that specific sprint. We use Salesforce reports or Tableau dashboards for this to get a list of all the relevant KB articles, linked cases, and the level of effort. Our KDs then analyze the top KBs with the most number of linked cases and or LOE to recurring issues and start prioritizing them based on business impacts to our customers. The next step is to finalize the corrective actions. We would like to remind here again that there can be like more than one corrective action item for any declared problem. The categories for corrective actions are including but not limited to writing a new external KB, resolution path KBs or updates to user guides, change requests for software defects, JIRAs for product enhancements, etc. The other benefits include gathering requirements for tooling and training. Once the declared problem is resolved, we track the outcome using our outcome dashboard. And then we look for key trends such as case volume, reduction in case volume, LOE, outbound escalations, and we also look for cues when it comes to enhancing CSAT, ESAT, etc. So the lessons learned. This has been a tremendous win for us, but it was not without a lot of effort and change management that had to be done, and we are still doing. Some of the lessons, what we have learned so far and what we want to share are, it's a large effort to align other parts of the org or teams outside your org, anticipate and plan for that alignment, as well as teams that will start coming to you because they heard about it, your success, and now are interested. Communicate the why to your org, show the data so everyone can see how it aligns to your business goals. A well-documented runbook lets KDE take charge. And I would like to remind here Paul's earlier quote: resist the urge to always need more data, look at what you have differently. Last but not least, recognize KDEs and others, the support engineers included. They give us the data by practicing KCS. Back to you, Paul. Thanks.
Thanks, Sathish. And one thing I wanted to point out, and I talked at the very beginning about how patience is key. So when we looked at that image manager story that we talked about, it really took us 5 quarters before we started seeing significant reduction in cases. So you need to really be patient. Everything's not going to be immediate. So when you start developing your own OKRs internally of what this is going to look like, you need to really think out a few quarters before you see change. So with that being said, in closing, I would like to tell a brief story of one of our successes, and this is the image manager product. After reviewing the metrics with engineering and product manager, we started a new collaboration forum with this team. And during our first discussion, the product manager shared with us his product vision and his OKRs for the upcoming year. And the discussion led to how can support play a role in the sales cycle? And our team thought about this and said, since we're on the phone and we're the first line of contact with our customer base, why not create a tool for us that can tell for the customers that don't have the image manager product, what that product can do for their assets that are on their main website. So the product manager said, that's something I can do. And I goes, okay, so let's talk about this. So we had our main product line lead, and that's a term for someone who does our problem management. He's our interface with the product teams. And he helped develop that tool with his engineering team. And this ended up being a really good collaborative exercise over 9 months. And they ended up launching that tool after 9 months to the portal. And that was an idea that came from someone on my team that said, why don't we just push this out to the customers so they can do this themselves versus having support do it. And this really went over well. And so far it's been a huge success. And to think of it, this all started because of a conversation about reducing cases and escalations to an engineering group, hence the product management cycle. So that's how we closed the loop. So hopefully you enjoyed that story. And if we can go to the next slide, I think Monique is gonna refresh so we can announce the winners.
Sorry, just a minute. We're still collecting some names.
Oh, well, hold on. And I hope you all enjoyed our journey, and we'll be answering questions after this. But I would like to see the names myself.
Are there some Q&A that people want to reach out and ask Paul and Sathish while we're waiting for the names? Paula, Kamaya, were you able to get all of the questions answered in the chat?
So there were a few that we were still working on. So there was one question that came in from Avinash from Aspect. What is the ideal attach link rate?
You repeat that question?
What is the ideal attach and link rate?
The link rate, the attach rate. So best practice, do not put a goal on your attach rate because you will certainly meet that goal, but it will be gamified, and so you'll get things that are not accurate, and you'll get a lot of pollution in your knowledge base. And so really, if you explain to people why you're asking them to attach, and this is one of the big outcomes of that, then they understand and they're willing to do it correctly. And then you'll see your attach rate start skyrocketing without you ever having to look at the indicators of how much you are attaching, what that percentage is.
I think part of that question came from me because I was talking to somebody the other day about they have a linking rate of 20%, but it's really accurate, right? Which is way more important than an actual link rate. But I suspect that there is a point at which you have to have a certain link rate in order to mine trends and patterns. And so I was wondering if you had a sense of where that sort of tips in terms of where you start to see those trends and patterns.
So I'd say probably anywhere around 70%. Our link rate is 80% with a 94% attach accuracy.
That's great. That's kind of right in line with, I think, previous experience, which says between 70 and 80% link rate, as long as they're accurate links, is what gets you those trends. Thanks.
There was one more question about LOE that came in that wasn't answered yet. It's from Michal. It's how do you calculate LOE? Is it for customers or supporters?
So I can answer that. So that is the amount of LOE that the primary engineer works for the case total. And if others collaborate with them, like tier 2 or even some other individuals through a SWAM technique, they will add their LOE to the case. So there is individual LOE per week, but there's also case and product LOE as well too.
Yeah, I would like to add a couple of things. This also goes back to the link rate, the ROI, the attach rate. So when we start looking into problem management, when we go through those sprints, so we run a report on all the KBs, the top KBs based on the number of linked cases. So the link rate is critical. Sometimes we see helpful articles attached on top of problem and resolution that also gives some additional insights. So there is a little bit of manual effort that is involved, but that's why our domain experts, they actually review all the cases that are linked to those KBs and establish a pattern. And the report also summarizes all the LOE, and it also gives a total LOE across all those linked cases for that particular KB. So we know which are the KBs that are not only seeing highest link rate, they're how much, what is a level of effort that is when it comes to solving those problems. And that's a key data that we use to prioritize which are the problems that we need to go after first. So those are two critical pieces of information that we look for when we go through these sprints.
And there's another question from Christy Morin. So in a nutshell, would you say that you look at content in demand and problems link driving most of the cases?
Yeah, I would say so. That combined with the associated level of effort that's take to the account.
And then another question from Holly Palmer. How do you get the accuracy rate?
So our KCS coaches do a attach check review on 20% of the cases that are created for each coachee. And so they go in and identify, is the linked article relevant? Is it relevant to the case? Did it solve? It has to be solved, not helpful, but if they attach more than one, is it solved? Did it solve the case? Yes or no? If they didn't attach anything, then there's other options they can select, like reuse loss, modify loss, or it's legitimate non-participation. So through that process is how we get the number for the attach accuracy.
And a question from John Coles. What are your KDEs doing in regards to self-service portal?
So right now, the focus this year has been problem management, but also self-service success. So a lot of the KDEs spend a good chunk of time going through articles and looking at the top articles as well, either through the problem management stint or just separately, and looking to see if the ones that are internal can be made external or enhance the top external ones. We don't yet, because we started, we don't want to overwhelm our KDEs, but we don't yet have them doing things that are further on a roadmap, like possibly looking at the search tuning and content gap reports and filling those. But right now, so it's problem management and external visibility.
And another question, what strategy did you leverage to convince leadership that the process takes time before the value materializes?
So I can answer that. So the whole product life cycle starts at the very inception of the product, which we call through the PACE process. And once a product has gone through the cycles of beta, LA, and GA, once it goes GA, we start reviewing customer pain points through our product line leads, and we have meetings weekly with the PACE team to review feedback. It's a feedback mechanism back into the product and the product teams. Problem management just sits on top of that. And, our leaders, within Architect, we're always looking to put an efficiency gain somewhere, and this is truly an efficiency gain and a good collaborative gain as well, too, with other areas. However, our goal is to reduce case volumes from coming into Architect and make our customers happy. Our customers, they love us, but the less they talk to us is good also in addition. So, I mean, that should be everyone's goal, is to reduce case volume and allow our customers to be more self-supportable. So we've had really good buy-in from our leadership, and they clearly understand the wait period, and they clearly understand why my OKRs are kind of fuzzy sometimes. So anyways, hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, and another question from Avinash. I'm curious to learn some of the best practices that we can apply for better KCS engagement, starting from the KCS coaches and extending the culture across the organization.
That's a huge topic. So there are a lot of things around that. But if I'm going to have to pick one, I would say that it has to be important to your entire organization. So having your executive team buy in, talk about, communicate, all of those things really show that this is what's important and why it's important. So, you know, we're very fortunate to have a great executive team that does that. And so now it's really become part of our culture. You know, everything from, you know, communications to OKRs and things like that, much of them are centered around knowledge. And so I think that is probably one of the key things. But if I'm gonna have to pick another one real quick, I'll just add on there a strong coaching program.
I'd almost ask what in support can you change that happens quickly, right? So if that's what your support leadership is expecting, then they're going to have a lot of things that are going to surprise them and upset them. And there's very few things that I would say we do that we expect to see results in a year. And I'm Scott Lerner, by the way, I'm the VP for the group. So if you have a leader who doesn't think that making these types of investments is the right thing to do, I'm happy to talk to them and explain why it makes sense to have patience and how you have to look at these things and they'll pay off in the long run, because I don't know any other way you're going to see the gains. At least in a technical complex world like we live in Akamai, we have to be patient. And when we do see the payoff, it's usually huge. So you start to see the wins along the way and you just know, hey, they might be a year or two out, but if you don't make that investment, you're never going to see it.
Thank you. And Arnfinn, I don't know if this was a question for us, but there was a question here. In addition to looking at linked knowledge to cases, are you also looking at your forums and self-service article hits to identify problems? I don't know if this was for us, for the general audience.
Yeah, it would be for Akamai if you have that, if you're currently doing that, or if you have it on the roadmap to, as you're shifting more and more of the issues to self-service and your forums, are you also mining that for insights on customer problems?
So the report right now for discovery does not include self-service, but it's definitely a good thing to have. The outcomes does include self-service. So I think that's a great call out there that we can make, Arnfinn. For forums, not yet.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And a follow-up question from Michal on the LOE topic. Are engineers submitting information on their effort for specific cases, or is it somehow calculated based on ITSM or CRM logs? So I can actually answer that one as well. We do have we do have a mechanism in place where engineers manually have to log in LOE on every case that they work on. And in addition to that, we also have something else we're working on through our ACD system, where any inbound or outbound call, the LOE for that would be automatically logged to the case that the engineer is working on. So to answer your question, it is logged under a specific case. Okay. Question from Sheila. Does the checking for link accuracy continue after candidates have their KCS contributor or KCS publisher level?
Yes, so it does continue, but what does happen is as they move up that licensing model, the frequency of sessions is reduced. So right now, our contributor and author are happening weekly. And then if you're a publisher or a KCS coach or a KDE, that happens twice a month. So we do expect a certain amount of sessions per month. Whether they schedule them weekly or they have a couple in 1 week, that's completely up to them, because we found that because it's become a topic where it's natural for us to talk about knowledge, we have what we call on-demand coaching sessions. So it can be informal, unscheduled, or whatever, but those all do count towards the process where a coach will go in and do both the attached checks and the AQI.
And a question from Avinash: what is the sample size that we should consider while performing article quality index? Is that dynamic depending on the volume of cases managed?
Yeah, I really do think it is depending on the volume of cases. I have to say, you really have to kind of see what percentage there is going to give you the trends. It's going to be probably maybe 20 to 50 to more. It depends on the volume. In my past experience at other organizations, it was somewhere around 20%, is because it was very pristine and did not need to be checked that frequently. There was a long history of people that had been there and doing this for 15 plus years, so they'd certainly gotten the hang of it. In newer organizations, you probably need to do it more frequently. I've even seen it where it's done on every single article. And for us, we do it on every article, but it's not because we need it done on every article. It's because one, we want to focus on external articles, again, making sure we're taking those opportunities this year, but also because the complexity of our cases is so high that it would be unusual if somebody had more than 10 cases a week. So you can imagine the amount of new articles being created is very low at this point.
And a question from Christy: can you repeat about how you measure LOE? So Christy, that's done in two parts. The first part is the engineers would log the LOE against the case. And then in problem management, or depending on the stint we're working on, there would be a report where we look at the LOE. It cascades up on a product level and sometimes on an article level as well. So one of the dashboards that Sathish referenced earlier, in that dashboard, we have a way to be able to look at the LOE per article. So we'd be able to tell what the overall LOE. So basically what we look at is how many cases were attached to this article, and then what the case product was for all of those cases. So then we can look at number of cases attached to an article by product, and based on that we can cascade the LOE up based on the product and even the article level, so we can look at a particular product level issue or platform level issue based on that issue that the article was tagged at. And Monique and Sathish, I don't know if you guys wanted to add more to that.
I think Akamai covered it. Thanks.
I'm just trying to look. I think that was the last question I saw.
There was a question about JIRAs. I can take that. So for problem management, we use two different JIRA projects. Right now, we are for a problem register, we track them with the JIRA project. We also have, once we identify say anything that requires a change request for a software defect or product enhancements, then we raise tickets against the product JIRAs. So we maintain two set of projects for one for problem register and one for product specific enhancements or software defects.
And
I would add to that that's one of the things we're looking forward to, is the process of collapsing those JIRA records where we used to declare problems, collapsing that into the knowledge articles. Lightning really allows us now to create custom fields on knowledge articles. So if you end up flagging a knowledge article as a problem, you've sort of saved a step for the engineer, because they no longer, just by virtue of attaching the correct knowledge, they're attaching an already declared problem, if the knowledge article has been declared a problem. The engineers don't really have to worry about whether it's been declared a problem or not. They're just attaching the right root cause or helpful articles, and some of those articles might be flagged as problems. they will be able to see that those articles are flagged as problems because they'll be able to see the flagging, they'll be able to see who owns it, they'll be able to see corrective actions attached. And those corrective actions, some of them will point to JIRAs, and some of them will just be actions maybe we need to take for some reason, a training or something like that. So it's really a way of leveraging knowledge, just basically adding to the knowledge use case, and collapsing the need for managing these separate records in other systems. And then it also gives us end-to-end reporting. You know, I think, Linda, you were mentioning ServiceNow does a really good job. They have a problem repository process. That makes great sense. Then it's all in one system. You can do end-to-end reporting all the way from the problem and the corrective actions back to the accounts, the number of severity 1 cases, the number of incidents, because the problem article is actually attached to the cases, and those cases are attached to service incidents if that's what you have. So it really gives us all the data in one system to be able to make decisions about prioritizing with engineering what should be fixed. So it's pretty powerful. We're pretty hopeful about it. There will still, all of our engineering fixes are still tracked in JIRA, and that's fine, but it gives us everything that we declare, which is problem management, in our own system of record that we work with. So that's the
Hey,
whole.
Paula, this is Linda King. One quick question on that. Do you guys, I know back in the day when I worked at Salesforce, Salesforce released a known issues portal, which allowed, you know, customers to basically see everything that's happening. Do you also provide that for your customers?
So we're at the sort of beginning of our self-service journey, not beginning, but we do have a subset of our articles, and we're very focused on publishing articles to customers, and customers can search. We're in the process of possibly moving case management over there so that as they're opening cases, they can do that research, and we can co-locate the case, the known issue database. I mean, not the known issue database, but the knowledge articles. I think, am I answering your question, Linda?
Yeah, so one of the things,
it?
you know, back in the day, again, and it was a huge step. Let's say it went to Parker Harris because product managers didn't want the world knowing, you know, all the story. And at the time, you know, from a corporate culture, they said, wait a second, our core value is transparency. We're running these production systems for our customers. Like we have to be willing, you know, to be open. And again, it changed. So then the product managers needed to be much more aggressive of which, you know, issues they were solving because there was a lot of visibility. And what was interesting, the reason I ask is they had the ability. Now, it was a public knowledge base and still is. I mean, anybody can go look at it. If you want to say this impacts me too, then you have to log in and authenticate so that they know that you're a legit customer. But it saved a lot of cases from having to come into support to indicate that these were happening at customer sites, and it allowed, you know, the customers to have a little bit, you know, louder voice. They felt better about it, and it gave the product team a much broader awareness of what was really happening, you know, in the world than just the ones that actually contacted the support organization. So
that is
just
a really
something to consider.
interesting point.
Yeah.
Honestly, because if we end up doing, or when we end up doing, declaring some knowledge articles as problems, that becomes our known error database. The question you're posing is really interesting around which of those, or are any of those customer facing. The assumption was they'd be all internal, but that's not necessarily true. And I think you bring up a really interesting sort of point for us to talk about, because that is the motion, you know, and that is the trend in the industry. It is to be a little bit more transparent. So I think that's another layer we can add on to this in terms of what we talk about. I don't know if Christina or Monique, you have another comment around that.
Yeah, I'll actually add, and this is Amit. I am quite familiar with what you were talking about, Linda, and I think it's a great way. It enables the customers to feel empowered to influence the issues they care about the most by going and clicking, hey, I'm impacted by this as well, right? And I think it's a great concept. Are we there yet? No, but it's absolutely a place we would love to get to where, you know, if a customer feels that they're getting impacted by a particular issue, even if they're not raising a case, they can mark it as such in our system, and then our roadmap decisions can be further influenced by what our customers are telling us directly, as opposed to us sitting in a little room making those decisions for ourselves, right? So I think it's incredibly powerful, and I can see the product management mindset change almost that needs to happen there. So a lot of OCM there internally to get to that point too. But yeah, hopefully someday we'll evolve ourselves to that point.
Yeah, and
Thanks.
for everyone, I just put a link, you know, in the chat if you want to just even go look at what we're talking about, because like I said, it's unauthenticated unless unless you want to do the Me Too. But it was, again, back in the day, it was something that, you know, was pretty, and the model is just like customers can vote on ideas for enhancements and bring visibility to, hey, I think this is a great idea, I'd like this too. You know, we at the time used that for these, you know, these issues to bring attention. And again, it was, you know, a little bit of a deflection strategy, because it was like, okay, if they don't have to contact us and we can just, you know, record it, and product management and engineering can use that to help make their decisions, that was a win-win, you know, for everyone.
So glad you brought that up, Linda. Actually, it just gives us more to think about as we think about using knowledge for problem management, because this is another really important dimension.
Yeah, and this is Arnfinn, what I've found at companies where they expose that to the customer at a minimum, and they allow them to then have it as a favorite, and then they update that bridge article so that you constantly get a status. You know, it's a known problem, but you get a status of where they are in the resolution. So you don't have to log cases to get a status on a problem. You can just look to that article.
You guys are just making me more excited about the direction that we're going. I think that is an excellent point. Do we have more questions?
Yes, there's a few more that have come in. So there's one question about, how is your coaching program structured for success?
Well, it's a big coaching program. We have, I'd say we have 20 lead coaches who then coach the rest of the coaches. There are 100 KCS coaches. But then we also have KDE coaches. There's 8 of them who coach the 30 KDEs as well. And so we have coaching meetings and calibration calls monthly for each of the geos, Americas, EMEA, and APJ. And we keep those all in sync, and we review, you know, issues. We go through certain use cases. We do calibration with articles. So there's a lot of things that are done in those coaching calls, but I think having that structure in a manageable way, so that even each coach has, you know, no more than 5 to 6 people, really allows them to spend the time with each coachee.
And another question, how do you celebrate success when fast root cause and solutions are met by engineers?
So I think I'm going to answer some of that in the chat, but recognition is always is always keen. It's always big. So every all hands, we have, recognition for KCS. We celebrate the people that have articles that were the most viewed, the most reused internally. And we recently started including, some of the stuff that the KDEs are doing, like, certain KDEs, spent this much time and they archived these articles or flipped this many articles, or even the original proof of concept, that the example we gave in this webinar here, that person was called out on a slide as well for recognition and showed the impact and, the previous history training of what is now being removed thanks to the product enhancement.
And one last question I see is, what incentives were put in place for knowledge workers to create and link articles to cases, especially at the beginning of KCS adoption?
All about the why. It's all about change management. So the initial training through KCS, very little time is actually spent on the tool and how to do it. Majority of the time is spent on the methodology and the practice and helping people understand why we're asking them to do something. And really, they're already doing all these things and we're just showing them a more efficient way to do it. And so when we go through that initial onboarding program, the coaches then continue to keep that as something that's constantly in the top of their minds.
I'm just going to add on, Monique, that when you're looking at KCS and implementing it and architecting it for success, one thing that I feel has helped people in the past is to say it's 70% OCM, organizational change management. It's about really explaining to people what is it that you have to do differently and why. And honestly, the tooling around it and stuff is very simple and intuitive. But there is resistance to change as is typically in any change that you bring about. But if you take it as the 70-30 split and really focus your energy on the change management up front, I think you will see better results, better adoption, better stickiness over the long run.
And I would like to add one more point is as we went through this, we started outlining the procedures and everything in a run book. But one of the biggest impact we had is when one of the KDEs who actually took painstaking measures to jot down everything that KDE was doing, we encouraged the KDE to write a blog on how we went about managing that sprint and walk us through every step of the process in terms of identifying the problems. That resonated with all the other KDEs, and that brought in more inspiration from even some of the impact outcome and what we were able to capture in the run book. So something worth mentioning, it's easy for a KDE to inspire other KDEs. So encouraging them to write a blog will go a long way.
I think we have 2 more minutes. I think we'll have time for one last question and then we can announce the book winners. So there's one question from John Cole saying, Monique, in addition to you, how many people are dedicated to Akamai's KCS program?
Full-time dedication? It's just me.
Or otherwise said as, one superhuman dedicated to knowledge management, that's Monique. And we try to help her out. We help her out, of course, and support her, and we've built the whole structure around it. But I think it's, if you're thinking of right-sizing the team, I think you do have to go a little beyond, especially for a global organization. I think 3 people is probably a good place to be at to create the right structure around it. And in our case, we've sort of used we have a subset of a team called continuous improvement, where we sort of step in and help out. And then we've got various other coaches and such, councils and coaches that are set up to also help run the program. So, but the administration of the program in its current state, which is more of a steady state, is being done by Monique.
Yeah, I do rely heavily on definitely the coaches and the KDs and our team members, right? And so let me share my screen. We're at time, so we can get the book winners names here. And if you are one of these winners, please send your shipping address to Pauline, P-L-A-N-E at Akamai.com, and he will send you out that book.
And congrats to those who did win the book, and enjoy your reading. It's a fabulous book.
Well, thank you so much, team at Akamai. This has been wonderful. I put Paul's email address in the chat as well. If you want to copy, if you're one of the winners, you want to copy and email from that. It's been great spending some time with you today. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and we'll hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.